A billionaire dad sees a cleaner crying in the rain. What he does is unbelievable. The rain was pounding against the windshield. Andrew Carter adjusted the wipers, but the water kept blurring his vision. The streets were almost empty, with only a few cars moving slowly down the wet avenues. The sound of the storm filled the late afternoon silence. In the back seat, Chloe was playing with a teddy bear, her blonde hair falling over her shoulders. She was 6 years old and had clear blue eyes that always noticed things adults ignored. Her school uniform was still pristine, even after a full day at school. "Daddy, why is it raining so much?" she asked, pressing her face against the foggy window. "Sometimes it just happens," Andrew replied, focused on the road. "We'll be home soon." Traffic was slow. Andrew drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, thinking about the day he had ahead at the office. There was always something urgent, always an important meeting. A businessman's life never stopped, not even when it rained. He sighed, tired from another busy day. Chloe continued to stare out the window. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement, creating a colorful spectacle that fascinated her. She enjoyed car rides with her dad, even when he was lost in quiet thought. "Daddy, someone is over there." Andrew looked in the rearview mirror. Chloe was pointing to something on the right side of the street. "What did you see?" "A woman. She's sitting in the rain." Andrew slowed down and looked in the direction his daughter was pointing. There was a bus stop a few feet ahead, but that's not what Chloe was looking at. On the sidewalk, under a flickering streetlight, a woman was sitting on the wet curb. Her blonde hair was matted to her face by the rain, and she was hugging a small, worn suitcase as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Her shoulders were trembling, but it didn't seem to be just from the cold. "Daddy, stop the car," Chloe said, in the serious voice of a worried child. "Chloe, we can't stop for every person on the street." "But she's crying." Andrew stopped at a red light and took the opportunity to get a better look. The woman was wearing a dark blue uniform, crumpled and soaked. An ID badge hung from her chest, swinging in the wind. She didn't seem to be waiting for anything, just sitting there, letting the rain fall on her. "She needs help," Chloe insisted. The light turned green, but Andrew didn't accelerate. Other cars honked and drove past him. Chloe was right. It wasn't normal for someone to be sitting in the rain like that. "All right," he sighed, turning on his hazard lights. Andrew parked near the woman and rolled down his window. The rain immediately came into the car. "Excuse me." "Are you all right?" The woman slowly lifted her face, as if the movement hurt. Her clear green eyes were red and swollen, and it was impossible to tell if the streaks on her pale cheeks were tears or rain. She looked at Andrew with genuine surprise, as if she had forgotten that other people existed in the world. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize that someone was speaking to her. She began, but her voice was hoarse. Andrew turned off the engine and got out of the car. The rain hit him instantly, soaking his shirt in seconds. He approached the woman, keeping a respectful distance. "Did something happen?" "Can I help?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand, a useless gesture in the downpour. "I got fired," she said, barely audibly. "Today, I have nowhere to go." Andrew looked at the wet ID badge. Sarah Brooks, housekeeping, the Grand Plaza Hotel. The uniform was immaculate, despite being soaked. She seemed to have taken good care of her work clothes, even after losing her job. "Do you live far from here?" Sarah shook her head slowly, a gesture of total defeat. "I used to live at the hotel, staff room in the basement. They gave me an hour to grab my things and leave." She clutched the suitcase tighter against her chest. Andrew imagined that inside were all her worldly possessions. A few clothes, maybe a photo, items that fit into a small suitcase and represented a lifetime. From the car, Chloe was watching everything intently. She had rolled down the window and could hear part of the conversation. "Daddy," she yelled, "invite her to come with us." Andrew turned to his daughter, surprised. Chloe had her face pressed against the window, her blue eyes filled with childlike determination. Sarah also looked at the little girl. For an instant, something changed in her expression. It was as if she had forgotten that children existed. Andrew ran a hand through his wet hair, thinking quickly. Taking a stranger home wasn't exactly what he had planned to do that night. But there was something about the whole situation that bothered him. No one should be sitting in the rain with nowhere to go. "Come with us," he said, without thinking much. Sarah blinked several times, as if she hadn't understood. "What?" "You can't stay here in the rain. Come with us, at least until it stops raining." "I can't accept that. You don't even know me." "So what?" Chloe yelled from the car. "We can get to know you now." Andrew smiled at his daughter's simple logic. "She's right. We're not going to leave you here getting soaked. Come on." Sarah looked at him, then at Chloe, then at the suitcase in her arms. There was suspicion in her eyes, but also something that looked like hope. "Why would you do this?" Andrew shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do." The rain continued to fall, harder now. Sarah slowly stood up, her legs trembling after sitting on the wet ground for so long. She held the suitcase carefully and took a few steps toward the car. "Are you sure?" she asked one last time. "I am," Andrew replied, opening the back door. Sarah got into the car, soaked and shivering. Chloe immediately took off her pink jacket and offered it to her. "So you don't get cold," the little girl said. Sarah accepted the jacket and placed it over her shoulders. For the first time, a small smile appeared on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Andrew got back into the driver's seat, all wet himself. He turned on the heater and looked in the rearview mirror. Sarah was sitting motionless, still clutching the suitcase, as if she couldn't believe she was dry and safe. "What's your name?" Chloe asked. Sarah Brooks." "I'm Chloe, and this is my daddy, Andrew." Sarah nodded, still a bit in shock. Andrew started the engine and drove back onto the road. In the rearview mirror, he saw the relief in Sarah's eyes. It was as if she had been holding her breath for hours and could finally breathe again. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked in a small voice. "Home," Chloe answered before her dad could. "You'll like it. We have hot chocolate." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if to make sure this was real. When she opened them again, there were tears, but this time they weren't from despair. It was as if a door that had been closed for a long time had suddenly opened. The rain continued to beat against the windshield, but inside the car, there was something different now. 3 lives that had been completely separate just a few minutes ago were now connected by a simple act of kindness. The air seemed lighter despite the storm outside. Andrew drove in silence, but his mind was no longer on tomorrow's commitments. He thought about the woman in the back seat, about how life could change in an instant, and about how his 6-year-old daughter had taught him a lesson he had almost forgotten. Chloe kept watching Sarah out of the corner of her eye, with the natural curiosity of children. Sometimes doing the right thing was simpler than it seemed, and sometimes a rainy night could change everything. Sarah woke up before the sun rose. The living room couch was comfortable, much better than the rain from the night before, but she couldn't fully relax. She had slept in her still damp clothes, holding the suitcase against her chest as if it were a shield. Her muscles were tense, and she felt like she was trespassing in a space that didn't belong to her. The house was in absolute silence. Through the window, she could see that the rain had stopped. The first morning light crept timidly through the half-open curtains, creating golden stripes on the hardwood floor. The air still carried the damp smell of the previous night's storm. Sarah got up slowly, trying not to make any noise. She folded the blanket that Andrew had given her the night before and straightened the pillows on the couch. It was the least she could do. She stretched, feeling her joints protest after a night in an awkward position. She walked through the house carefully, observing everything around her. It was a beautiful home, with quality furniture and neutral decor, but there was something that bothered her. It wasn't dirt. Everything was clean and organized. It was more a sense of emotional neglect, as if the house functioned only out of obligation, not love. The kitchen was spacious and well-equipped, with granite countertops and modern appliances. Sarah opened a few drawers and cabinets, trying to familiarize herself with the space. She found good quality coffee beans, bread that seemed a few days old, and fresh eggs in the fridge. Basic ingredients for a decent breakfast, but she could make something special with them. She began to work in silence, with the precise movements of someone who had done this 1,000 times. First, she prepared the coffee, carefully measuring the right amount of grounds and water. The aroma immediately began to spread through the kitchen, a rich and welcoming smell that transformed the cold environment into something warmer and more inviting. While the coffee brewed, Sarah examined the bread. It was a little dry, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. She cut uniform slices and put them in the toaster. In the fridge, she found butter, jam, and some seasonings. Sarah cracked 3 eggs into a bowl, observing the perfectly golden, intact yolks. She whisked them carefully, incorporating air into the mixture, and seasoned them with the exact amount of salt and pepper. She turned on the stove and heated a pan with a little oil, waiting for the ideal temperature. The sound of the eggs sizzling joined the bubbling of the coffee sea, creating a morning symphony that echoed through the silent house. She moved through the kitchen with natural efficiency and grace, as if she knew exactly where everything should be. Every gesture was calculated, every movement had purpose and intention. It was clear that Sarah knew how to cook, and to cook well. There was an elegance in her movements that contrasted with the precarious situation of the night before. The smell intensified, filling not just the kitchen but the whole house. It was an aroma that spoke of happy homes, peaceful mornings, and families gathered around the table. Sarah smiled for the first time since she had gotten into that car in the rain. She found a clean towel in one of the cabinets and laid it on the table. It wasn't anything fancy, just a light blue towel, but it transformed the table immediately. She looked for plates and silverware, setting 3 places carefully. In the backyard, through the kitchen door, Sarah saw some wildflowers growing untended. She quickly went out and picked a small bouquet, nothing fancy, just yellow and white flowers that brought color and life. She put them in a glass of water in the center of the table. Sarah was finishing arranging the eggs on the plates when she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. She turned, nervous. What if Andrew had changed his mind? What if he wanted her to leave first thing in the morning? But the first person to appear was Chloe, still in her pink unicorn pajamas, her messy blonde hair forming small rebellious tufts and her clear blue eyes still sleepy. The little girl stopped at the kitchen door, blinking several times like a small owl, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She rubbed her eyes with the back of her small hands. "Wow," she said, her eyes wide as a smile lit up her face. "That smells so good. It smells like a restaurant." Sarah smiled, feeling a huge sense of relief and a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. "Good morning, Chloe. I made breakfast. I hope you like it. Did you sleep well?" "I did," Chloe replied, still admiring the transformation. "I dreamed about angels in the rain." Chloe walked into the kitchen barefoot and twirled around the table, admiring every detail with the attention only children can give to small things. "It's so pretty. Everything's different. And there are flowers. Where did they come from?" "I found them in the backyard. I hope your dad doesn't mind." "They were a bit abandoned, like I was yesterday." "He'll love it," Chloe said, climbing onto her chair with a child's natural agility. "We never have flowers on the table, or coffee that smells like this." Sarah poured a small cup of coffee with a lot of milk for Chloe and placed the plate with eggs and toast in front of her. The little girl took the first bite and her eyes lit up. "This is delicious. How did you learn to cook like this?" "My mum taught me when I was little," Sarah replied, sitting next to Chloe. "She used to say that food made with love tastes different." "It's true. I can taste the love," Chloe said, as serious as only children can be. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Sarah watched Chloe, noticing how the little girl had good manners but also an adorable spontaneity. It was clear that Andrew had raised her well. "Do you have kids?" Chloe asked suddenly, with a child's typical bluntness. Sarah swallowed hard, feeling a lump in her throat. It was an innocent question, but it touched on deep wounds that had not yet fully healed. "No, I don't." "Why not? You'd be a really good mum. You make good coffee and you're pretty." "Sometimes things don't happen the way we plan," Sarah replied carefully, choosing her words. "Life is full of surprises, some good, others not so much. Chloe nodded, as if she perfectly understood the complexity of adult life, even at 6 years old. My daddy says my mommy went to heaven when I was a baby. I don't remember her, but daddy says she was very pretty, had hair just like mine, and that she used to sing to me before I went to sleep. Do you sing? Sarah's heart ached. So that was it. Andrew was raising Chloe alone. I'm sure she was wonderful, Sarah said softly. You're pretty too, Chloe said, munching on her toast. And you know how to cook. Daddy's not a very good cook. We always eat the same thing. Sarah laughed. Maybe I can teach him a few recipes. Really? That would be awesome. The footsteps on the stairs became more audible. Andrew was coming down. Sarah quickly got up, nervous again. Andrew appeared at the kitchen door wearing a dress shirt and tie, clearly getting ready for another day at work. He stopped abruptly when he saw the scene. The set table, the flowers, the smell of fresh coffee, his daughter smiling while eating a real breakfast. Good morning, he said, still processing the transformation. Good morning, Mr. Carter, Sarah replied formally. I made breakfast, I hope you don't mind. I found the ingredients in the kitchen. Andrew looked around, clearly impressed. The same old kitchen seemed completely different. There was life there, a human warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. Of course I don't mind, he said, sitting in the third chair. In fact, I don't remember the last time I had breakfast at home. Sarah served him coffee and placed a plate with eggs and toast in front of him. Andrew took the first bite and closed his eyes, savoring it. This is excellent, he said, sincerely. Do you cook professionally? Not anymore, Sarah answered, looking down. But I've always loved to cook. Daddy, Sarah said she can teach you recipes, Chloe interrupted, excited. Andrew smiled at his daughter, then at Sarah. It would be an honor to learn. They continued eating, and gradually the conversation flowed more naturally. Chloe talked about school. Andrew mentioned a few things about work, and Sarah listened to everything with genuine attention. Can I help with the dishes? Chloe asked when she finished eating. Of course, Sarah replied. You can dry the plates. Andrew finished his coffee and looked at his watch. He always left for the office early, but he was reluctant to leave that warm atmosphere. I need to go to work, he said, getting up. Sarah, is there anything you need today? Anywhere you need to go? The question hung in the air. All three of them knew Sarah had nowhere to go. I can take care of the house, she said, in a low voice. Clean, organize. It's the least I can do after your kindness. You don't have to work to stay here, Andrew said firmly. I want to do something, please. Andrew looked at Chloe, who nodded vigorously. She can stay, right, Daddy, and cook more often. Andrew laughed. Of course she can stay for as long as you want. After Andrew left for work, Sarah and Chloe were alone in the kitchen. The little girl helped wash the dishes, talking non-stop about everything and nothing. Want to help me tidy up the house? Sarah asked. Yes, I'll be your assistant. They started in the living room. Sarah noticed that, although it was clean, the house lacked life. The cushions were all perfectly aligned, but without personality. There were no personal objects scattered around, no mess that indicated people actually lived there. Sarah began to rearrange the cushions, mixing colors and textures. Chloe watched her with fascination. Why are you doing that? To make it cozier, Sarah explained. A home needs to look like happy people live in it. They moved a few pieces of furniture, creating more intimate spaces. Sarah found some books scattered around and arranged them more naturally. Chloe brought some of her drawings from school, and Sarah put them on the refrigerator with magnets. By late morning, the house was transformed. It wasn't a drastic change, but there was something different in the air. The house was breathing. Chloe threw herself onto the couch, admiring their work. It's so much better this way, she said. The house looks happy. Sarah smiled, sitting down next to her. Houses get happy when the people who live in them are happy. Do you think my daddy will like it? I'm sure he will. When Andrew got home that night, carrying his briefcase and with the typical exhaustion of a busy day, he stopped at the living room door and stood in silence for a long moment. The house was physically the same, but completely different in essence. There was something intangible in the air, a sense of home that he hadn't felt in years. It was as if the house had gained a soul. Chloe ran to him with contagious energy, her eyes shining with excitement. "Daddy, look how pretty it is. Sarah and I tidied everything up. And she knows how to make different eggs, and the flowers on the table are beautiful, and the house is happy." Andrew looked around once more, observing every small change carefully. The purposefully messy cushions, the softer light, the repositioned small objects. Then his eyes turned to Sarah, who was in the kitchen drying her hands with a dish towel, watching his reaction with a mix of hope and anxiety in her eyes. "It's perfect," he said, and his voice carried an emotion he didn't expect to feel. Truly perfect. For the first time in a long time, Andrew Carter was coming home for real, not just returning to a place where he slept. A week had passed since the rainy night. The house's routine had completely changed, and Sarah felt more and more like a part of that small, welcoming family. It was Thursday afternoon when Chloe got home from school with her eyes shining with excitement. "Sarah? Sarah? Today is cookie day at school, but the teacher said we can make them at home too. Do you know how to make cookies?" Sarah was folding clothes in the living room, but she stopped immediately when she saw the little girl's excitement. "Of course I do. Do you want to make them now?" "Yes," Chloe shouted, dropping her backpack on the floor and running to the kitchen. Sarah laughed at the girl's contagious energy. In the last few days, Chloe had become her shadow, following her all over the house, asking questions about everything, and offering to help with every task. In the kitchen, Sarah opened the cabinets, checking the available ingredients. "Let's see. We have flour, sugar, eggs, butter, perfect for chocolate chip cookies. Do you like chocolate?" "I love chocolate," Chloe answered, climbing onto a chair to reach the counter. "Can I crack the eggs?" "You can, but be careful." Sarah taught Chloe how to crack the eggs without getting any shell pieces in the mixture. The little girl concentrated intensely, with her tongue sticking out, determined to do everything perfectly. "Is this good?" she asked, proud of the result. "It's perfect. Now let's mix everything together." They worked side by side, Chloe stirring the dough while Sarah added the ingredients in the right amounts. The kitchen was filled with flour and laughter when Chloe tried to throw the chocolate chips into the bowl, and half of them fell on the counter. "Oops," she said, laughing. "The chocolate ran away." "That's okay. We'll clean it up later," Sarah replied, helping to pick up the runaway chips. While the cookies baked in the oven, they decided to tidy up the living room. Chloe was full of energy and wanted to help with everything. "Sarah, have you always lived alone?" the little girl asked, helping to fold a blanket. "I have, yes. For a long time. Wasn't it sad?" Sarah thought about the question for a moment. It had been sad, yes, but she had gotten used to the loneliness. "Sometimes. But now I'm here with you and your dad, and that makes me very happy." "I'm happy too," Chloe said, hugging the blanket. "You make the house more cheerful. Like when I put glitter on my drawings." Sarah smiled at the adorable comparison. "You make me happy too, Chloe. Very happy." They continued tidying up, with Chloe telling stories from school about her classmates and about the teacher who always praised her drawings. Sarah listened to everything with attention, asking questions and laughing at the small childhood adventures. "Sarah, can I tell you a secret?" Chloe whispered, even though they were alone in the room. "Of course. I always wanted to have an older sister, someone who knew how to make cookies and do hair and stuff. Daddy tries, but he's not very good at those things." Sarah's heart ached with emotion. "Your dad does the best he can, and he loves you very much." "I know, but it's nice to have you here too. It feels like our family is more complete." When Andrew got home that night, he was greeted by the smell of fresh cookies and the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. In the last few days, he had started to leave the office earlier, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to be home. He wanted to be a part of these moments that Sarah and Chloe were creating together. "Daddy!" Chloe ran to him, holding a plate of still warm cookies. "We made cookies. Try one." Andrew bit into one of the cookies and closed his eyes, savoring it. "God, this is delicious. You two are great bakers." Sarah taught me. She knows how to make a lot of delicious things. Andrew looked at Sarah, who was in the kitchen finishing up cleaning the afternoon's mess. Thank you, he said, for all of this, for making our house a real home. Sarah blushed slightly. I'm the one who should thank you. You gave me a new chance at life. They ate dinner together at the kitchen table, a tradition that had started naturally. Andrew talked about work. Sarah spoke about her adventures of the day with Chloe, and the little girl completed the stories with her own colorful details. Sarah, have you traveled to any cool places? Chloe asked, nibbling on a cookie for dessert. I have a few. I lived in different cities, met interesting people. Tell us a travel story, Andrew requested, genuinely interested. Sarah thought for a moment. Once, I was in a small town in the countryside, and I got lost trying to find a pharmacy. I ended up at a birthday party for a 90-year-old woman. She saw me lost on the street and invited me in. And you went? Chloe asked, her eyes wide. I did, and it was one of the best parties of my life. The birthday girl adopted me as a temporary granddaughter and made me dance with all the old men at the party. Andrew laughed. Are you a good dancer? Terrible, Sarah confessed, laughing too. I stepped on at least 3 people's feet. Teach us how to dance, Chloe exclaimed. Are you sure? Remember I said I'm terrible. It doesn't matter. It'll be fun. After dinner, they went to the living room. Sarah put on some soft music on the radio and tried to teach Chloe some basic steps. The little girl twirled and jumped, inventing her own movements, while Andrew watched from the couch, smiling. Now you, Daddy, Chloe said, pulling her father's hand. Oh, I don't know. Andrew hesitated. Come on, Sarah encouraged him. It's just for fun. Andrew got up a little awkwardly. Sarah showed him simple steps, and they danced slowly in the living room, with Chloe clapping and giving dramatic instructions. Daddy, you're stepping on Sarah's foot, she laughed. Now I understand why you stepped on those gentlemen's feet, Andrew said to Sarah, making her laugh. They continued dancing, laughing at their wrong steps and stumbles. It was silly, but there was something magical about that moment. 3 people who had barely known each other a week ago, creating memories that felt like they had always existed. When the music ended, they sat on the couch, still laughing. Thank you, Sarah said, looking at both of them. It's been a long time since I've had this much fun. We're the ones who should thank you, Andrew replied. You brought joy to this house, a joy I didn't even know was missing. Chloe snuggled between the 2 of them on the couch, yawning. Can we make cookies again tomorrow? She asked and sleepy. Of course, Sarah answered, stroking the little girl's hair. We can make whatever you want. And are we going to dance again? If your dad doesn't break anyone's foot, Sarah joked. Andrew feigned indignation. Hey, I got a lot better in the last 10 minutes. They kept talking until Chloe fell asleep on the couch. Andrew carried her to her room, and when he came back, he found Sarah tidying up the dinner plates. Let me do that, he said. You don't have to, I like to help. They washed the dishes together in a comfortable silence. There was a natural intimacy in that moment, as if they had been a real family for years. Sarah, Andrew said, drying a plate. I want you to know that, that you can stay here as long as you want. Forever, if you wish. This is your home now. Sarah stopped washing the last glass and looked at him. Thank you, Andrew. That means more to me than you can imagine. You've done more for us in a week than... He stopped, searching for the right words. You've brought us back to life. Chloe is happier. I'm happier. The house is alive again. Sarah smiled, feeling tears in her eyes. You saved me that night. You literally saved me. And now you're giving me the chance to be part of a family again. They finished cleaning the kitchen, and Sarah went to her makeshift room in the living room. But before she lay down, she stood observing the silent house. There were photographs of Chloe scattered around, drawings from school stuck on the fridge, and toys organized with care. It was a real home now, and she was a part of it. For the first time in a long time, Sarah Brooks slept without hugging her suitcase. She finally had a place where she belonged. 2 weeks had passed, and the routine of the Carter household had completely transformed. Sarah woke up early, prepared coffee, organized the house, and took care of Chloe when the little girl came home from school. Andrew got home from work earlier, ate dinner at home, and participated in the conversations that extended late into the night. It was a rainy Tuesday when everything changed. Chloe had just gone upstairs for her bath after dinner, and Andrew and Sarah were left in the kitchen washing the dishes. It had become a silent tradition between them. She washed, he dried, and they talked about their day. "Chloe is happy," Andrew commented, drying a plate carefully. "Happier than I've seen her in a long time." "She's a special little girl," Sarah replied, scrubbing a pot. "Smart, loving. You did an amazing job raising her alone." Andrew smiled, but there was a melancholy in his eyes. "Sometimes I wonder if I was able to give her everything she needed, if she didn't miss, well, things I didn't know how to give her. She has a lot of love. That's the most important thing." They continued in silence for a few minutes, with only the sound of running water and the gentle clinking of dishes. "Sarah," Andrew said, hesitating, "can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer if you don't want to." Sarah paused, a cup in her hands. "Of course. Have you always worked in housekeeping? It's just, well, you have a different way about you, organized, efficient, as if you have experience in other areas." Sarah continued washing the cup, thinking about her answer. The moment she knew would eventually come had arrived. Andrew deserved to know the truth. "No," she said, simply. "Not always." Andrew waited, realizing there was more to hear. Sarah rinsed the cup and placed it in the dish rack. Then she turned to him, leaning against the sink. "Before I worked at the hotel, I had a very different life. I was a logistics and business management consultant." Andrew stopped drying the plate, surprised. "A consultant?" "Yes. I had my own office, a small but competent team, important clients. I helped companies optimize processes, reduce costs, improve operational efficiency." She spoke calmly, without drama, as if she were talking about the weather. "I worked for 8 years building my reputation. I wasn't rich, but I had a comfortable life. Her nice apartment, a good car, occasional business trips." Andrew put the plate in the cabinet and turned to face her completely. "What happened?" Sarah took a deep breath, but her voice remained serene. "I had a partner, Marcus. We started together. We split everything 50-50. At least that's what I thought." She took a towel and began to dry her hands slowly. Guy Marcus was charismatic, convincing. Clients loved him. I took care of the more technical side, the processes, the actual implementation of the solutions. We worked well together. And then I found out he had been siphoning money from projects for 2 years. Funds that should have gone to suppliers, to the team's payroll, to taxes. He created dummy companies, overcharged for services, manipulated contracts. Andrew frowned. "Did you report him?" Sarah shook her head. "I tried, but Marcus had prepared very well. When I confronted him, I discovered that all the documents made me the main person responsible for the compromised projects. My signature was on everything. My name was on all the dummy companies as the majority partner. How is that possible?" "Trust," Sarah said, with a bitter smile. "I signed documents that he said were routine contracts, contractual updates, changes of corporate name. I never imagined he was setting me up." She leaned her hands on the sink, looking out the window. "And when everything came to light, I was the only legal one responsible. Marcus had transferred everything to my name and disappeared. Literally disappeared. He left a letter saying he was leaving the country." Andrew felt a rage growing inside him. "And you?" "I lost everything," Sarah said, simply. "The clients sued the company. Since I was the only visible partner, all civil and criminal liability fell on me. I had to sell my apartment, my car, everything I owned to pay for damages and lawyers. But you were innocent." "Being innocent didn't stop my name from being destroyed in the market. No one wanted to hire someone involved in a financial scandal, even if they were a victim." The doors closed one by one. Sarah turned to him, and Andrew saw that her green eyes were calm, without a hint of self-pity. "I spent 2 years trying to rebuild my career. I took small jobs, freelance projects, anything to survive. But reputation is everything in that field. Once you lose trust, it's almost impossible to get it back. And that's when you started working in housekeeping. I needed to eat, Sarah said, shrugging. The hotel was hiring, and I needed any job. It wasn't what I had planned for my life, but it was honest. And after everything I went through, honesty was what mattered most. Andrew was silent for a long moment, processing everything he had heard. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I didn't want you to look at me with pity, Sarah replied directly, or for you to feel obligated to help me because of my story. You brought me home because it was the right thing to do, not because I had a college degree. And that's right. But Sarah, you are so much more than I imagined. Sarah smiled. I'm no more or less than I was on the first night. I'm the same person who was sitting in the rain, needing help. Andrew shook his head. No. You're the person who rebuilt her life from scratch, who didn't let herself be completely broken, who maintained her dignity even after losing everything. Everyone has a story, Andrew. Mine is no more special than any other. They heard Chloe coming down the stairs, humming a song she had learned at school. Daddy, Sarah, come see. I made a painting in the bath with the shampoo. Andrew and Sarah looked at each other and laughed. Life goes on, Sarah said, drying her hands on the towel. Yes, Andrew agreed. But now I understand better who you really are. They went to see Chloe's work of art in the bathroom, and the serious conversation in the kitchen was left behind. But something had changed between Andrew and Sarah. There was a new understanding, a deeper respect. In the following days, Andrew noticed small things he hadn't noticed before. The way Sarah organized the household documents, always by date and category. How she suggested practical improvements for the domestic routine. The efficient way she planned the weekly grocery shopping, optimizing time and money. Sarah, he said on a Thursday, while she was helping Chloe with her homework, can I ask a work question? Of course. I have a situation at the office. A project that is behind schedule, over budget, and I can't identify where the problem is. Sarah looked up from Chloe's notebooks. What kind of project? Implementation of a new management system. It should have been finished in 3 months, but we're already in the 5th month and not even half of it is done. How many people are involved? 12. 3 departments. Sarah thought for a moment. The problem is probably in the communication between departments or in the initial scope definition. In projects like this, there are usually 2 possibilities. Either the objectives were not clearly established from the beginning, or there isn't an efficient flow of information between the teams. Andrew stopped reviewing his emails. Go on. Do you have a detailed schedule with specific milestones? Or just a final deadline? More or less a final deadline. There's the problem, Sarah said, going back to helping Chloe with math. Without intermediate milestones, there's no way to identify delays until it's too late. Andrew was impressed by the precision of her analysis. How would you do it? I would divide the project into smaller phases, each with clear and measurable objectives. I would create weekly alignment meetings between departments, and I would establish a simple reporting system to track progress in real time. Daddy, Chloe interrupted. You're talking about work during homework time. Sorry, Princess, Andrew laughed, but Sarah just gave me a really good solution. Sarah is very smart, Chloe said proudly. She helped me solve a math problem I didn't understand. That night, after Chloe went to sleep, Andrew and Sarah talked for hours in the living room. He asked about team management, process optimization, cost reduction. She answered naturally, offering practical insights based on years of experience. Do you miss it? Andrew asked. Your old life? Sarah thought about the question. I miss the purpose, knowing that my work made a difference and that I was solving real problems. But I don't miss the stress, the constant pressure, the sleepless nights. And if an opportunity came up to go back? I don't know, Sarah admitted. My priority is different now. It's being here, with you. It's being part of this family that took me in. Andrew smiled. You will always be a part of this family, Sarah, regardless of any job. Thank you. That means everything to me. Actually, Andrew said, hesitating, I was thinking maybe you could help me with some projects at the company as a freelance consultant. If you want, of course. Sarah looked at him, surprised. Are you sure? Absolutely. You have the knowledge and experience I need, and it would be a way for you to gradually return to the market, to rebuild your reputation. I would really like that. Then it's decided. Tomorrow I'll show you some projects." They talked late into the night, planning how Sarah could help with Carter Technologies. There was an excitement in the air, a feeling of new possibilities. When Sarah finally went to sleep, she felt more complete than she had in years. Not just because she would have the chance to return to the work she loved, but because Andrew saw her as a competent professional, not just as someone who needed help. The revelation had changed everything. Andrew not only respected her as a person, he respected her as a professional. And that made all the difference in the world. The next morning, Sarah woke up earlier than usual, not because she was anxious, but because she was excited. For the first time in 3 years, she had real prospects for the future. And best of all, she wouldn't have to choose between her career and her new family. Andrew had found a way for her to have both. As she prepared breakfast, Sarah smiled to herself. Life had a strange way of coming full circle. Sometimes, losing everything was just the first step to finding something much better. That night, Andrew came home with a different expression. During dinner, he was visibly more cheerful than usual, with a contagious energy. "Did something good happen at work?" Sarah asked, noticing his change in mood. "You happened," he replied, smiling broadly. "What you discovered today is going to completely change the company's financial health." They were just some basic process observations. They weren't just observations. It was a complete and professional analysis that none of my most experienced employees could do. Chloe, who was playing with her food on the plate, looked up curiously. "Sarah really is the smartest," she said, proudly. "She helped me with math yesterday and explained it in a way that was super easy." "It's true," Andrew agreed, looking at Sarah with admiration. "Sarah is very smart." "You're exaggerating," Sarah said, blushing slightly. "We're not," Andrew insisted, "and I'm thinking of making a different proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "I want you to be more than an administrative assistant. I want you to be the company's internal consultant." Sarah almost dropped her glass of water, clearly surprised. "So what? You clearly have the necessary knowledge and experience. What you discovered today proves it without a doubt. The company needs someone to optimize processes, reduce costs, improve efficiency. It's exactly your area of expertise." "Andrew, think about it carefully. It would be a new position with a better salary, more responsibility. You would be responsible for analyzing all the company's processes and proposing strategic improvements." Sarah was silent for a moment, processing the magnitude of the proposal. "Are you sure I can do this?" "I am more sure than I've been about any professional decision in years." "What if I don't meet your expectations?" Andrew looked her directly in the eyes. "Sarah, you have already exceeded all my expectations. At work and here at home. You've transformed our personal life, and now you're transforming my company. I have no doubt that you will be essential for the future of Carter Technologies." Chloe stopped playing with her food and looked at the two adults. "So does that mean Sarah is going to work more with you, Daddy?" "If she accepts, yes." "Accept, Sarah," Chloe said, excited. "That way you can work together, and I'll be proud of both of you." Sarah laughed at the little girl's genuine excitement. "All right," she said, looking first at Chloe, then at Andrew. "I accept." Andrew smiled widely. "Really? Really? But with one important condition." "What is it?" "I still take care of Chloe in the afternoon. Work can never be more important than family." "It's a deal." It was a Monday morning when Andrew came down for coffee and found Sarah organizing a pile of papers on the kitchen table. Documents from Chloe's school, household bills, appliance warranties. Everything was separated by category and arranged in alphabetical and chronological order. "Good morning," he said, admiring the meticulous organization. "What are you doing?" "Good morning. I was tidying up the papers you left in the kitchen drawer. Some of them are important and were a bit lost among junk mail and old receipts." Andrew came closer and saw that Sarah had created small, handwritten labels for each category. Chloe's school, bills, pending, bills, paid, warranties, personal documents. Each section was impeccably organized. "This is incredible," he said, genuinely impressed. "I've been looking for some of these documents for weeks. I found 3 bills that are due this week and a school document that needed to be returned today," Sarah said, pointing to a specific pile. "And I separated some warranties that have already expired. You can throw those away." "You did all this morning?" "I woke up early. Chloe was still sleeping, so I took advantage of the time." Andrew looked at the perfect organization. Each document was in a clear plastic folder with the due date or deadline clearly visible in the top right corner. It was a simple but incredibly efficient and visual system. "Sarah, can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Would you like to work at my company?" Sarah stopped organizing the papers and looked at him, clearly surprised. "What do you mean?" "Carter Technologies is growing, and I need someone to help with organization, documents, basic processes. Nothing too complex at first, but someone who knows how to put things in order like you did here." Sarah hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Andrew, I don't want you to feel obligated to offer me a job just because I'm living here." "It's not an obligation," he interrupted her firmly. "It's a real need. Look at what you did here. In 2 hours, you organized documents that I couldn't find for months. Imagine what you could do at the office." "But I don't have recent references. You have competence, and that's what really matters." Sarah thought for a moment, looking at the organization she had created. "Would it be part-time?" "I don't want to stop taking care of Chloe. Of course, you can work while she's at school and have the afternoon free to be with her. And the pay? Fair, with a signed contract, benefits, everything in order." Sarah smiled for the first time in the conversation, and Andrew saw a light turn on in her green eyes. "And the pay? Fair, with a signed contract to pay benefits, everything in order." Sarah smiled, and Andrew saw a light turn on in her eyes. "Then I accept." "Really? Really? Thank you so much, Andrew. You have no idea what this means to me." "It means a lot to me too," he said, sincerely. "Thus having someone I can trust helping at the company will make a big difference." The following week, Sarah started working at Carter Technologies. The company was in a modern commercial building downtown, occupying 2 full floors. Andrew introduced her as an administrative assistant, but from the first day it was clear that she would be much more than that. The office was organized, but not optimized. Important papers were mixed with drafts, digital files had no naming standard, processes could be drastically simplified. Sarah observed everything in the first few days, making discreet notes in a small notebook she always carried. "How's it going?" Andrew asked on Thursday, entering the room that had been designated for her. "Interesting," Sarah replied, looking up from a pile of contracts. "Can I ask you some questions about the processes?" "Of course. Why do the contracts pass through 5 different people before being approved?" Andrew thought about the question. "It's always been that way. Each department needs to give their opinion, but 3 of those people are doing the same check. It's causing rework and delays." "Do you have a suggestion?" Sarah picked up a sheet of paper where she had drawn a simple flow chart. "It could be like this. Legal analyzes the legality, finance checks values and deadlines, and you give the final approval. The other checks are redundant." Andrew looked at the flow chart. It was logical, clear, efficient. How much time would this save? At least 3 days per contract, and it would eliminate the confusion about who is responsible for which step. "Implement it," Andrew said without hesitation. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. If you see the problem and have the solution, implement it." In the following weeks, Sarah began to review other processes, always carefully, always asking before suggesting changes, but her observations were spot on. It was when she started analyzing the financial spreadsheets that she found something worrying. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Sarah knocked on Andrew's office door, carrying an organized folder and a serious but confident expression. "Can I talk to you? It's about some documents I'm reviewing." "Of course, come in." Sarah entered and closed the door behind her, a gesture that Andrew noticed immediately. "Sorry, Sir Andrew, I found some inconsistencies in the monthly reports. Nothing major, but things that could be costing the company significant money. Andrew stopped what he was doing and gave her his full attention. What kind of inconsistencies? Sarah methodically opened the folder and spread some colorful spreadsheets on the table. Take a look. You're paying for 3 different software programs that do basically the same thing. One for project management, another for time tracking, and a third for reports. But there's a software on the market that does all of this together for half the total price. Andrew looked at the numbers she had carefully highlighted. How much are we losing per month? Approximately $3,000. Per year, that would be more than $30,000 that could be invested in growth. And there's more. Sarah turned a few pages, revealing more detailed analyses. Yes, you are outsourcing the office cleaning for $1,200 a month. But the company is sending 4 people to clean a space that 2 people could maintain perfectly in half the time. Andrew frowned, intrigued. How do you know that? Sarah smiled with a touch of irony. Experience in cleaning, remember? I know exactly how long it takes to clean each type of environment and how many people are really necessary. Go on. The phone contract is also overpriced. You're paying for 15 landlines that no one uses, I confirmed with the employees, and for a data package that is 3 times larger than what the company currently needs. Sarah continued to present her findings meticulously. Unnecessary contracts, processes that caused costly rework, suppliers who charged above market rate for basic services. In total, she said, showing a colorful and well-organized summary spreadsheet, the company could save about $8,000 a month just with these adjustments, without cutting staff, without reducing quality, just by optimizing existing processes. Andrew was silent for a long moment, studying every number she had prepared. But Sarah, that's a lot of money. It is. And they are simple problems to solve. Most of the contracts can be renegotiated. The software can be replaced gradually. Why didn't anyone see this before? Because when you're too deep inside the system, sometimes you can't see the problems. It's like the organization of your house. You get used to the mess and don't notice it anymore. Andrew leaned back in his chair, impressed. Do you have specific suggestions to solve each of these points? I do. In fact, I've already researched alternatives for most of them. I can present a detailed plan if you'd like. I want it. I definitely want it, Sarah smiled. Can I present it tomorrow? You can. That night, Andrew came home with a different expression. During dinner, he was more cheerful than usual. Did something good happen at work? Sarah asked, noticing his mood. You happened, he replied, smiling. What you discovered today is going to completely change the company's financial health. They were just some basic observations. They weren't just observations. It was a complete and professional analysis that none of my employees could do. Chloe, who was playing with her food on the plate, looked up. Sarah is the smartest one, she said, proudly. She helped me with math yesterday and it was super easy. It's true, Andrew agreed. Sarah is very smart. You're exaggerating, Sarah said, blushing. We're not, Andrew insisted, and I'm thinking of making a proposal. What kind of proposal? I want you to be more than an administrative assistant. I want you to be the company's internal consultant. Sarah almost dropped her glass of water. What? You clearly have the knowledge and experience. What you discovered today proves it. The company needs someone to optimize processes, reduce costs, improve efficiency. It's exactly your area. Andrew, think about it carefully. It would be a new position, with a better salary, more responsibility. You would be responsible for analyzing all the company's processes and proposing improvements. Sarah was silent, processing the proposal. Are you sure I can do this? I am. More sure than I've been about any professional decision in years. What if I don't meet your expectations? Andrew looked her in the eyes. Sarah, you have already exceeded all my expectations, at work and here at home. You've transformed our personal life and now you're transforming my company. I have no doubt that you will be essential for the future of Carter Technologies. Chloe stopped playing with her food. Does that mean Sarah is going to work more with you, Daddy? If she accepts, yes. Accept, Sarah, Chloe said, excited. That way you can work together and I'll be proud of both of you. Sarah laughed at the little girl's excitement. All right, she said, looking at Andrew. I accept. Andrew smiled. Really? Really? But with one condition. What is it? I still take care of Chloe in the afternoon. Work can't be more important than family. It's a deal, Andrew said, extending his hand. Welcome officially to the executive team of Carter Technologies. They shook hands, but there was more than a professional agreement in that gesture. It was the recognition that Sarah had found her place, not just as part of the Carter family, but as a competent and respected professional. That night, after Chloe went to sleep, Andrew and Sarah stayed in the living room planning the changes she would implement at the company. Thank you, Sarah said. For what? For giving me a second chance, for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself anymore. Andrew shook his head. I'm the one who should thank you. You not only saved our personal life, now you're saving my company too. We saved each other, Sarah said, smiling. It's true, and you know what's most incredible. What? This is just the beginning. With you taking care of the optimization, Carter Technologies can grow far beyond what I ever dreamed of. Sarah smiled, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. I won't disappoint you. I know you won't. In fact, I'm sure you'll surprise me many more times. They continued talking late into the night, planning the future of the company and, without realizing it, planning their future as a family and professional partners. For the first time in a long time, both Andrew and Sarah were absolutely sure they were on the right path. 3 months had passed since Sarah took on the role of internal consultant at Carter Technologies. The transformation was beyond any expectation Andrew could have had. It was a Friday morning when he arrived at the office and found a detailed report on his desk. Sarah had prepared a complete summary of the results achieved since she began the changes. Andrew read every line with growing admiration. The monthly savings had exceeded the initially projected $8,000, reaching $10,500. The new processes reduced contract approval time from 2 weeks to 5 business days. The team's overall productivity increased by 22%. Sarah, he called when he saw her walking down the hall. Do you have a minute? Of course, she replied, entering the office with the natural confidence she had developed in recent months. These numbers are impressive. How did you do this? Sarah sat in the chair in front of his desk. It was a team effort. The employees just needed clearer processes and better tools. Once we implemented the changes, they themselves suggested other improvements. Marcus from accounting mentioned that you created a new system for expense tracking. Yes, it was a simple process, but it was taking too much time. Now he can close the month in half the time and with much more accuracy. Andrew shook his head, impressed. What about the sales team? They love the new reporting system. They can track their goals in real time, and that's motivating everyone. Sarah, I need to tell you something, Andrew said, leaning back in his chair. When I hired you, I expected help with basic organization. But you have completely transformed the company. The company already had potential. I just helped organize it better. No, it was much more than that. You brought a professional vision that was missing. Sarah smiled, clearly pleased with the recognition. Thank you. I love what I do here. It's been a long time since I felt so professionally useful. Andrew looked at the numbers again. With these results, I'm thinking of expanding. Maybe opening a branch in another city. Seriously, that's amazing. And I want you to coordinate the entire project for structuring the new unit. Sarah's eyes widened. Andrew, that's a huge responsibility. I trust you completely. That afternoon, Sarah came home with a different energy. She found Chloe in the living room, doing homework at the coffee table. Hi, sweetheart, Sarah said, kissing the top of the little girl's blonde head. How was school today? Good. The teacher said my science project was the best in the class, Chloe replied proudly. That's awesome. What was the theme again? Plants that grow at home. Remember we planted those sunflower seeds? Sarah smiled. It had been her idea to plant some flowers with Chloe in the small backyard garden. The little girl took care of the plants every day, watering them and watching them grow. Of course I remember. And how are our sunflowers doing? Come see, they grew a lot this week. They went out to the backyard. Indeed, the sunflowers were tall and strong with bright yellow flowers that followed the sun. They're beautiful, Sarah said. You took very good care of them. We took care of them, Chloe corrected. Together, you taught me how. Water every day, but not too much. And to talk to them. Talk to them. You said plants like it when we talk to them with love, Chloe explained. Seriously, I tell them about school, about you and Daddy. Sarah's heart ached with emotion. The little girl had become much more than a responsibility. It was as if she were her own daughter. Chloe, can I tell you some good news? Of course. Your dad gave me a promotion at work. I'm going to take care of a very important project. Chloe jumped for joy. That's so cool. You're really the smartest. I bet you'll make everything perfect. Thank you, sweetie. That means a lot to me. When Andrew got home that night, he found Sarah and Chloe in the kitchen, preparing dinner together. The little girl was standing on a stool, stirring a pot, while Sarah chopped vegetables. That smells good, he said, kissing Chloe on the forehead and smiling at Sarah. Chloe is helping me make a new stew, Sarah explained. She has a talent for cooking. Just like you, Chloe said proudly. During dinner, they talked about their respective days. Chloe talked about her science project, Sarah mentioned her new responsibility, and Andrew spoke about the company's expansion plans. Do you know what this means? Andrew asked, looking at the two of them. What? Chloe wanted to know. It means our family is growing along with the company. Sarah is becoming a successful executive. You're excelling at school, and I'm realizing dreams I didn't even know I had. Sarah felt her eyes welling up. Our family, she repeated, softly. Yes, Andrew confirmed. Our family. After dinner, they went to the living room. Chloe wanted to show them the photo album she was making at school. It was a project about family, and she had glued photos of the three of them together. Look, she said, pointing to a photo taken at the park the previous Sunday. This is my family, Daddy, me, and my Sarah. My Sarah? Sarah asked, emotional. Yes, you're mine, right? Just like Daddy is my daddy, you're my Sarah. Sarah hugged the little girl, trying to control her emotions. Of course I'm yours, my love. Forever. Andrew watched the scene with a smile on his face. In the last few months, he had seen both Sarah and Chloe blossom in ways he hadn't expected. Sarah, he said, when Chloe went to brush her teeth. Thank you. For what? For everything, for transforming our house into a home, for saving my company, for becoming an essential part of our lives. I'm the one who should thank you. You gave me a second chance when I needed it most. And now what? Now I have a real family and a job I love. I couldn't ask for anything more. Andrew moved closer to her. Sarah, can I say something serious? Of course. I don't know what our life would be like without you. I don't even want to imagine it. Sarah looked him in the eyes. You don't have to imagine. I'm not going anywhere. Are you sure? Absolutely. This is my place. With you. That night, after Chloe fell asleep, Andrew and Sarah stayed up talking in the living room. They talked about the future of the company, about the plans for the new branch, about how Chloe was growing. Did you notice how she's changed? Sarah commented. Chloe? Yes, she's more confident, more communicative. Before, she was a little shy. It's true. And you know why? Why? Because she has a mother figure now. Someone who teaches her things I didn't know how to teach, who gives her a kind of attention that only a woman can give. Sarah was silent for a moment. Andrew, I love that little girl as if she were my own daughter. She is your daughter. In all the ways that matter. And you? Me? How do you see me? As a work partner? As family? Andrew thought about the answer. Sarah, you are the most important person in my life after Chloe. You're my partner at work, my partner at home, my best friend, your family. Sarah smiled. Family. I like the sound of that. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the wind gently rustled the trees. Inside the house, three hearts beat in harmony, united by bonds that had formed naturally, without haste, but with solidity. Life had changed for all of them. Andrew was no longer a solitary businessman struggling to balance work and fatherhood. Sarah was no longer a lost woman, without direction or purpose. Chloe was no longer a little girl raised only by her father, without the female presence she so desperately needed. They had become a real family, and the results of that transformation were visible in every aspect of their lives. At the company, success was evident in the numbers and in the team's motivation. At home, happiness was palpable in Chloe's laughter, in Sarah's confidence, in Andrew's serenity. The new breezes blowing in their lives brought promises of even more growth, more achievements, more moments of shared happiness. And for the first time in a long time, all three of them felt complete. It was a Sunday afternoon when Sarah made the decision that would change everything. She was sitting in the backyard, watching Chloe play among the sunflowers they had planted together. When she realized something important, she was completely back on her feet. 6 months had passed since that rainy night. 6 months since Andrew had brought her home, soaked and lost. Now she had a stable job, a promising career, money saved. More than that, she had recovered her self-confidence, her dignity, her purpose. Sarah looked at the house that had become her home. Every corner held memories. The kitchen where she prepared coffee every morning, the living room where they talked late into the night, the couch where she had slept on the first nights. Everything was perfect, welcoming, full of love. But a voice in her head whispered a troubling question. How long would she be a guest? Andrew and Chloe treated her like family, that was true. But Sarah knew she had started there as someone who needed help. And now she was stable, independent. Maybe it was time to take the next step. "Sarah," Chloe shouted from the garden. "Come see, the biggest sunflower got even taller." Sarah smiled and went to the little girl. "It really is beautiful," she said, kneeling beside Chloe. "You took very good care of it." "We took care of it," Chloe corrected. "Together." Sarah felt a pang in her chest. How hard it would be to leave that adorable child. That night, during dinner, Sarah took a deep breath and gathered her courage. "Andrew, Chloe, I need to talk to you about something important." Andrew stopped eating and looked at her, noticing the serious tone. "Of course, what is it?" Sarah clasped her hands on the table, searching for the right words. "You've been incredible to me. You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. You gave me work when I needed to start over. You gave me affection when I was completely lost." "Sarah," Andrew began, but she gently raised her hand. "Let me finish, please." Chloe stopped playing with her food and paid attention. "Thanks to you, I've rebuilt myself. I have a job I love, I have money saved, I have prospects for the future. I'm well again." "That's great," Chloe said, smiling. "That's awesome." "It is," Sarah agreed, but her voice was strange. "And so, I think it's time for me to live on my own." Silence fell over the table like a bomb. Andrew dropped his fork. "What?" "I need to have my own home, my own space. I need to prove to myself that I can live independently again." "But you've already proven that," Andrew said, confused. "Every day, at work, in the way you take care of Chloe, in the way you've transformed our life." "It's not the same thing," Sarah insisted. "Here I'm still someone you're helping. I need to be just myself in my own place." Chloe looked from one to the other, trying to understand what was happening. "Sarah, you're not going to live with us anymore?" she asked, her voice small. Sarah felt her heart breaking. "No, sweetheart. I'm going to live in an apartment near here. We'll still see each other every day, at work, on weekends, but it won't be the same," Chloe said, and her blue eyes began to fill with tears. "No, it won't be the same," Sarah admitted, her voice faltering. Andrew was silent for a long moment, processing the information. "When do you plan to move?" "I already found an apartment. I can move next weekend." "So soon?" "The longer I wait, the harder it will be." Chloe got up from her chair abruptly and ran to Sarah, hugging her tightly. "Don't go," she cried. "You can't leave." Sarah hugged the little girl, feeling her own tears start to fall. "Chloe, love, you're part of us," Chloe sobbed. "You're my family." "Families don't break up." Sarah looked at Andrew over Chloe's head. He was pale, with an expression of loss she had never seen before. "Chloe is right," he said, in a low voice. "You're part of us." "You are my family too," Sarah said, stroking Chloe's blonde hair. "You always will be. But sometimes people need to grow. They need to have their own spaces." "I don't want you to grow," Chloe said, sniffling. "I want you to stay little here with us forever." Sarah laughed through her tears. "I'll always be here for you, even if I live somewhere else." "I promise." "Do you really promise?" "I promise." The days that followed were strange and tense. Sarah organized her few things. Andrew was quieter than usual, and Chloe alternated between periods of sadness and desperate attempts to convince Sarah to change her mind. "What if we buy a new bed for your room?" she suggested on Wednesday. "A really big, comfy one. My room here is perfect, sweetheart. And what if we renovate the kitchen? You always said you wanted an island in the middle. The kitchen is great as it is. And what if Daddy lets you choose the color of the living room wall?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Chloe, it's not about comfort or decoration. It's about me needing to have my own space, but I don't understand why. One day you will understand." At the company, Andrew tried to act normally, but Sarah could tell he was distant. Their conversations were limited to necessary professional matters. He no longer invited her to lunch, no longer stayed after work to talk. "Andrew," she said on Friday, "are you mad at me?" "I'm not mad," he replied, without looking up from his papers. "I'm just processing. I don't want our professional partnership to be affected by this." "It won't be," he guaranteed. "You're too good at what you do for me to let personal issues interfere." Sarah felt a pang of pain. The personal issues. Was that how he saw their relationship? Saturday morning arrived faster than Sarah had expected. She had hired a small moving company to take her things. 2 suitcases of clothes, a few books, a few personal items. It wasn't much, but it represented her independence. Chloe had been crying all morning. She refused to help with the packing and stayed in her room, hugging her teddy bear. "She'll be okay," Sarah said to Andrew as they waited for the moving truck to arrive. "She will," he agreed, but his voice was emotionless. "Andrew, I need you to understand." "I understand," he interrupted her. "You want your independence. It's your right. It's not just that." "Then what is it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "It's that I need to know if what we've built here is real, if it's based on choice, not on necessity." Andrew finally looked her in the eyes. "And you think it's not real?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "You brought me home because I needed help. Do you want me here because you choose to have me, or because you got used to my presence?" "Sarah, I need to find out who I am when I'm not the lost woman you saved in the rain." The truck arrived promptly at 9 in the morning. 2 men got out and started loading Sarah's things. It was a quick process. In half an hour, her whole life would be in boxes. Chloe ran downstairs when she heard the truck. "No," she screamed. "Don't let them take your things." Sarah knelt down in front of the little girl. "Chloe, look at me." The little girl looked at her with eyes red from crying. "I'm going to continue working with your dad. I'm going to continue taking care of you when he needs it. I'm going to continue coming here for dinner, to help with homework, to talk. The only thing that's going to change is that I'll sleep somewhere else. But I'm going to miss you at night. I'm going to miss you too. But sometimes we need to miss someone to realize how much we love them." The men finished loading the boxes. Sarah picked up her bag and looked at the house one last time. How many mornings had she woken up there? How many nights had she talked with Andrew in the living room? How many times had she helped Chloe with homework at the kitchen table? "All done," one of the men said. "Shall we go?" Sarah nodded. But before she could move, Andrew took a step forward. "Sire, wait," he said. The men stopped. Chloe looked up, hopeful. Andrew looked at Sarah, and she saw something different in his eyes, something that hadn't been there in the last few days. "Sarah," he began, his voice slightly shaky, Can I say something before you go? Of course. When you came here that night in the rain, I thought I was helping a stranger. I thought it was a gesture of charity, something temporary. Sarah felt her heart speed up. But you changed everything. Not just our house, not just my company. You changed me. You made me realize that I had stopped living and was just existing. Chloe came closer and stood between the two of them, listening carefully. You brought life to our home. You brought purpose to my work. You brought joy to my daughter. And you brought meaning back to my life. Tears rolled down Sarah's face. Andrew, don't finish talking, he interrupted her gently. You said you need to know if what we have is real, if it's based on choice. So let me choose now, clearly, without any ambiguity. He took another step closer. Stay. Not because you need help. Not because we need help. Stay because I choose to have you in my life. Because Chloe chooses to have you as part of her family. Stay because what we've built together is real, it's valuable, it's love. The tears streamed down Sarah's face. Are you sure? Absolutely, Andrew said, extending his hand. Stay. Not for the job, but for us, for our family. Sarah looked at the extended hand, then at Chloe's hopeful face, then back at Andrew's sincere eyes. Dismiss the truck, she said, smiling through her tears. I'm staying. Chloe screamed with joy and threw herself into Sarah's arms. Andrew smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen in a week. Are you sure? He asked. Absolutely, Sarah replied, echoing his words. This is my home. You are my family, and you don't abandon family. The movers were dismissed. The boxes were unloaded. And in a few minutes it was as if the attempt to move had never happened. But something had changed. Yes. Sarah was no longer the lost woman who had been rescued in the rain. She was Sarah Brooks, consultant, member of the Carter family, woman who had chosen her place in the world, and her place was there, with them, forever. A year after the rainy night that changed everything, Sarah woke up as she always did, before the sun rose, with a smile on her face. It was a spring Monday, and the golden morning rays entered the kitchen window as she prepared the coffee. The familiar aroma spread through the house, announcing the start of another day for the Carter family. Sarah no longer had to worry about making noise. This was her house, her kitchen, her routine. She belonged there just as much as the table where they had coffee or the flowers she renewed weekly. Good morning, Sarah, said Chloe, coming down the stairs still in her pajamas, but with her blonde hair already combed. Good morning, my love. How did you sleep? Well, I dreamed our sunflowers got gigantic and we could climb them. Sarah laughed, pouring a glass of warm milk for the little girl. What a beautiful dream. And how did it end? We made a house in the top of the tallest sunflower and lived there forever. You, me, and Daddy. Forever is a long time, Sarah said, stroking Chloe's hair. That's not when it's with the people we love. Andrew appeared in the kitchen, already dressed for work, but with a relaxed expression he hadn't had in years. Good morning, girls. Good morning, they replied in unison. He kissed Chloe's forehead and smiled at Sarah. How is our chief consultant today? Ready for another day of saving your company, Sarah joked. Our company, Andrew corrected. You're a partner now, remember? It was true. 3 months ago, Andrew had offered Sarah an equity stake in Carter Technologies. The company had grown exponentially with the improvements she had implemented, and the branch in the other city was working perfectly. I'm still getting used to it, Sarah admitted. You'd better get used to it soon, Chloe said, biting into a piece of toast. Because when I grow up, I'm going to work at the family company too. Oh, really? Andrew laughed. And what do you want to do at the company? I'm going to take care of the plants in the office and make coffee for everyone. Sarah taught me how. Great idea, Sarah said. But you have time to think about other possibilities too. They had coffee together, talking about the day's plans. Chloe had a presentation at school about family, a coincidence that made everyone smile. Andrew had a meeting with investors interested in expanding the company even more. Sarah was going to finalize the project for the third branch. Oh, Andrew said suddenly. I almost forgot. A letter came for you, Sarah. He handed her an official envelope. Sarah opened it and read it quickly, her eyes widening. What is it? Chloe asked, worried. It's a job offer from a multinational company. They want me to go to Europe to coordinate the restructuring of one of their branches. Silence fell over the table. Wow, Andrew said after a moment. That's incredible, Sarah. What a recognition. It really is incredible, she agreed, but her voice was strange. Are you going to accept? Chloe asked in a small voice. Sarah looked at the letter, then at the two anxious faces in front of her. No, she said, tearing the letter in half. I'm not… Sarah, Andrew protested. This could be the opportunity of a lifetime. No, she said, gathering the torn pieces. This right here is the opportunity of a lifetime. This table, this coffee, this family. Chloe jumped from her chair and hugged Sarah. I knew you wouldn't go. Families stick together. Andrew shook his head, but he was smiling. Are you sure? It's a very important company. I am. I already have an important company. And a family that is worth more than any career in the world. After Andrew and Chloe left, Sarah stayed alone in the kitchen for a few minutes. She looked around, remembering the first morning she had prepared coffee there. How everything had changed since then. She was no longer Sarah Brooksma, the woman who lost everything and was left in the rain with nowhere to go. Now she was Sarah Brooks, partner at Carter Technologies, adoptive mother to Chloe, life partner to Andrew. But more than that, she was someone who had found her place in the world. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Sarah? It was Andrew's voice. I forgot to say, Marcus from accounting wants to talk to you about that new project. All right. I'll talk to him when I get there. Sarah. Yes, thank you for tearing up that letter. Thank you for teaching me what a real family is. At the company, Sarah was received as she always was, with respect and affection. The employees had learned to trust her, to value her ideas, to see her as a genuine leader. Good morning, Sarah, the receptionist said. Mr. Marcus is waiting for you. Thanks, Carol. Sarah went up to her office. Yes, she had her own office now, with a view of the city and a photo of Chloe on her desk. The day passed quickly, filled with productive meetings, important decisions and plans for the future. Sarah loved her job, loved knowing that her ideas made a difference, that her experience was valued. At 5 in the afternoon, she packed up her things and said goodbye to the team. She was going to pick Chloe up from school, and then the two of them would go home together as they did every afternoon. How was the presentation? She asked, when Chloe got into the car. Great. I talked about our family, about how you came in the rain and changed everything. Everyone thought it was beautiful. And how did you feel talking about it? Proud, Chloe said, simply, proud of our family. At home, they prepared dinner together. Chloe had become an expert kitchen helper, able to chop vegetables and season food under Sarah's supervision. Sarah, Chloe said, stirring a pot, can I ask you a question? Of course. Are you happy? Sarah stopped chopping onions and looked at the little girl. Why do you ask that? Because I want to be sure that you're happy here with us. Sarah knelt down next to Chloe. Chloe, I've never been so happy in my life. You've given me everything I always wanted and never knew I could have. What did you always want? A family, a purpose, a place where I truly belong? Chloe smiled. So you'll never want to leave again? Never again. This is my home forever. Andrew arrived a little after 6, as usual. He found Sarah and Chloe in the kitchen, talking and laughing as they finished preparing dinner. That smells good, he said, kissing them both. Chloe made the sauce, Sarah announced proudly. By yourself. Almost by myself. Sarah only helped me a little bit. During dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Chloe talked about school, Andrew spoke about the plans for the new branch, and Sarah mentioned a few ideas to optimize the company's processes even more. It was a normal, everyday conversation, with nothing extraordinary about it, and that was exactly why it was perfect. After dinner, they went to the living room. Chloe did her homework while Andrew and Sarah talked about work and life. It was an established routine, comfortable, full of small moments of happiness. "Sarah," Andrew said, when Chloe went upstairs to take her bath, "do you realize what we've managed to build here?" "I do, and I'm still surprised every day." "Me too. Sometimes I look at our life and I can't believe it's real." "It's real," Sarah said, smiling. "Very real." "And you, don't you regret turning down that offer?" "Not for a second. Andrew, I spent years chasing professional success, building a career, accumulating achievements. And in the end, I lost everything and was left empty." She looked around the living room at the family photos, at Chloe's drawings on the fridge, at the life they had built together. "Here I found something that is worth more than any professional success. I found true love, real purpose, a family that chose me as much as I chose it." Andrew smiled. "So we're lucky, aren't we? Very lucky." When Chloe came down, already in her pajamas, they watched a movie together on the couch. The little girl fell asleep between them, and Andrew carried her to her room. "Good night, princess," he whispered, covering her with the blanket. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, Sarah," she murmured, sleepy. "Good night, my love," Sarah replied, kissing her forehead. Back in the living room, Andrew and Sarah stayed up talking for a while longer. "Thank you," he said suddenly. "For what?" "For staying, for choosing us, for transforming our house into a home. Thank you for stopping on that rainy night, for giving me a second chance at life. We saved each other," Andrew said. "It's true. And now we have all of this." They looked around the silent living room, full of life and love. "Sarah?" "Yes?" "Are you going to make coffee again tomorrow morning?" Sarah laughed. "Every day, Andrew, every day of our lives." And that's exactly what she did. The next morning and the next, and every morning that followed, fresh coffee, sincere conversations, shared laughter. The house breathed life. The family was complete. And Sarah Brooks had found not just a new beginning, but the true meaning of being home. Forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones.